What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are taking a look at how to actually put together an a cappella arrangement in terms of stacking full chords so that you get this nice resonant and full feeling from your music. And it's a really important element to think about because arranging is such an art in itself. It's so easy to just overwhelm certain areas of the frequency spectrum or make certain parts sound too thin or too thick, right? So understanding how chords work and how the theoretical aspects of notes and the harmonic series and everything, how that works is very, very crucial. So as a little token of my appreciation for watching this video, I want to actually give you my music theory guide, fundamentals guide, and it's totally free, but it kind of goes through the really essential music theory foundations that I think you should know in order to actually write an arrangement, to put together like any sort of arrangement, like an a cappella arrangement or an orchestral arrangement, a pop arrangement. Anytime it comes to notes and chords and scales and things like that, understanding how they all work together is very fundamental. So if you want to download that guide, it'll kind of go into my favorite foundational elements of music theory. It's not complicated. It's very simple to go over and read. So if you want to check it out, it's the first link in the description box below, and it is absolutely free once again. So feel free to download that and check it out at your convenience. Before we jump into the a cappella arrangement, I really want to let you know that my new course called Behind the Album Freedom is actually closing tonight. So it's actually like a full look into my album Freedom and how I actually put every single track together, from the story, the order of the tracks, how the messaging and the theming goes through the entire thing, the lyric breakdowns of every single song, how I rhymes everything, how it's all structured together, and then also the production, arrangement, and orchestration behind every single song. It's currently available for a discounted price, intro price right now. So if you check it out before the price goes up at the end of the week, I definitely encourage you to check that out, and you'll get to see my full entire process. So just to let you know before it goes up there. But let's kind of jump into this arrangement. All I have, it's my a cappella song that I have on the album Freedom. And the really important thing to know is the harmonic series. So when it comes to understanding how chords work, generally when you have the lower notes on the piano, like for example, C, right? You hear how when I just play this section of notes right here, C, G, and C, it already has a bit of a weighted quality to it, right? If I play it higher up, C, G, C up here, hear how it's much lighter, right? And that's kind of due to how the frequencies and the harmonics of each of those notes, the overtones, kind of layer and lap together. So keeping that in mind, the more close together the notes get at the very bottom, the more muddy they're going to get. If I play C, D, E, F, G all down here, notice how they're all really muddy. If I play them up here, it's a lot lighter, right? So the best way to actually write out your chords to ensure you have a kind of a full and rich sound is to make sure that you have your fundamental note. In this case, let's say it's in root position, so we have a C chord, and I could either go with the fifth here, or I could go with an upper root, like the octave above. If I choose the third, most likely it's gonna have a very muddy sound, as we talked about previously. So this really comes down to listening to the chord, and there's a concept in jazz called low interval limits, which is basically saying how low an interval can go without sounding muddy, right? So writing a third down here is not very pleasant. Going with a fifth or an octave is a better choice. So let's say I wanted to go with an octave to create this full and open type of quality, because an octave will always sound very nice in any register. And now I can put in a fifth, which is closer together than an octave, but that's okay because I'm moving up the frequency spectrum, right? So C, C, G, let's put in another root. Now let's put in a third to give it the quality of being major. And then let's add another fifth, another root, a third, fifth, and so on, right? So notice how this chord sounds balanced, it sounds rich, it sounds full, and everything like that. And so that is all down to the harmonic series and understanding how the farther apart the notes are when you go down on the piano, the more resonant and the richer it's going to be. So the way that applies to a cappella or any sort of orchestral arrangement in general is, the distance between your lowest two voices. In this case, I called it bass and I called it low mid. So the bass line at the very beginning is singing. Let's mute that and let's solo up the bass. hear how they're singing in unison, right? They're all singing the same note. And the way I've panned it is kind of like, let me just open this up a little bit more. Here we go. I've panned it hard left, hard right, and then the other two takes I've done middle left and middle right. But comparing that with the low mid voices, it sounds like this. Okay, let's talk about that really quickly. So I started on a C chord. Oh, I have to go back to my piano here and solo that up as well. There we go. There we go. So we have the C chord, and notice the bottom voice is singing a C, but my upper voice is singing a G. I did not choose the E because I thought that would be a little too heavy, even in this register, and it's not even that low yet. But I went with a G here, and then it actually helps that my melody is singing the third. It's actually singing the E, so it goes, right? So it's actually C, G, and E. That's already a full C major triad right there, but it's an extended position. It's going past just the regular notes right next to each other, right? And then after that, what do I have next? Let's see, the high mids. What note are they singing? Open my opus. So let's hear that one more time. Right, so you hear that. That is a full C chord. So that's, right? That's going do. And the melody is going to be singing the E here. So I've already went for kind of an open extended position here. And then at the very top, what do we have? Let's find out. Okay, and then the very top, then we have the E on the top, and that is the third. So, right there. So even though the melody's singing the E, the top voice, the fourth voice, is also singing the E, as you can see. And then after that, let's check out the next chord. Oops. So there we go. And then the bottom three voices kind of come into an E major triad. So C major to E major like this. Then we have like this, right? Notice how here we have root, fifth, because a perfect fifth is a very open sound as well. Then we have the third up above, because the third is the heaviest note of a triad. And then we have another E on top. And because the interval is smaller here at the top, it's not going to make a very muddy sound, right? So we have E at the top still, E at the top there as well. So lots of common tones, right? A lot of E common tones there. And then here we have, this is a G minor 7 chord. I could have voiced it at G, B flat, D, F, but again, hear how muddy that is, right? So it's much better to spread it apart. I could have done maybe like G, F, make it a minor 7th here and then do a 4th and then a 3rd. But I kind of wanted a little bit of a heavier sound. So I put the 5th down here, and then I put the B flat, the 6th up here, and then I put up F on the very top there. So it's also making a decision of where I want the top voice to be, right? I think when I actually put this together, I actually wrote out the bottom voice first. So let's actually mute the other ones there. Now, if we just hear the bass and the top, we get this. Okay, make note that the top voice is actually not moving very much. My point being, when I have a lot of common tones, I'm actually trying to maintain those common tones as smooth as possible. So like I said, we have this E, go back to the piano actually, go back to there we go. Having the E at the top as the common tone between those first three chords, that enables my top voice to sing the E the whole time before I go to the G minor 7, which I then switch to an F, going to a C7, which I sing an E, and then going back to an F. So notice how I'm only stepping down like a semitone and going up a semitone each time, because the actual movement between the voices doesn't have to be that severe. It doesn't have to be that much of a jump or a leap, you know? So it's really important to make sure that you understand the harmony and what you want the foundation of the chord to be, and that will kind of determine the positions of your bass line, right? So that might result in a slightly jumpier sound, little more large intervals, whereas the inner voices and the top voice, you just want to make sure they're less mobile. You want to let them be a little more smooth, because that will ensure that the arrangement is a little more I don't want to say static, right? But it's more lush that way. Rather than having all the voices kind of jump up and down, we're going with smooth voice sleeting to make sure the result is pleasant to the ear. And in addition, that also makes it more easy to focus on the melody as well, because the melody is kind of the most important element of the song, right? So if the inner voices don't have to move that much, then it makes sense to go with that option, because then it will sound much better. So let's put them all together, and let's hear how that sounds once again. Okay, actually, I think the last chord was the G7 like that, so I had the fifth in there as well. But the idea is you see that in general, the intervals are more wide apart at the bottom, right? And based on what that bass note's going to be, I voice the inner notes in a way that's more spread apart so that it, like compared with the top voice, those inner notes kind of fit pretty snugly, right? So if I know it's going to be like, right? That kind of already starts to imply what the chords are going to be. So if I know it's a C chord, then I can just add those inner two voices right there. If I know I want kind of an E major chord, then I can just add in those inner notes right there. And because it's kind of still above C3, it's not going to be too muddy. Then an A minor chord like this. So I have two options. I could go like this maybe, E here and a C here. I could go with a full A here. So the doubled root like this, right? Then I have a G minor 7, so I could do D and B flat like this. I could also do maybe like put a F, B flat, and D here, additional voice, or you could just take out the D altogether, the fifth of the chord, right? And then a C7 chord or just a C chord, and then we have regular F chord, C over E. In this case, I did put the G in there, I believe, which doesn't make it too muddy. It just emphasizes the fifth of the chord a little more. Then a D7, I wanted all four notes. So I have the fifth and the seventh there. And then here, instead of going with a straight G7, I went with actually an F over G, or you could call it a G9 sus4, right? So it's basically the 4 over the 5 chord. The 4 chord over the 5 note, the dominant note. Then we have the C major 7. And notice the smooth voice leading, right? The middle voice is only moving down a step each time. So that keeps it very smooth. And then we have F major 7, gives it a slightly jazzier, Christmassy sound, you know, if you can say that. Then we have F minor 6. I really like the minor 4 sound, so I kind of went with that sound with a D on the top, makes it F minor 6. C over E, E goes down to the D. Then we kind of have this A7, D7, and then we have a G7 at the very end, right? So the thing I can recommend the most is to make sure you have your bottom voice and your top voice outlined first. Where do you want the limits to be? And this is actually my same approach when it comes to string arranging. Arranging the bottom voice first in the basses, the double basses, so I know exactly where the lowest point is, and then arranging the violins 1 so I know where the highest point is going to be. Either it's going to be the melody or it's going to be some sort of harmonic function. After I do that, then I can start filling in the inner voices. And as I do that, I can start, readjusting a little bit. Maybe the basses need to come up a little bit, up like an octave, or maybe the violins need to come down a little bit to accommodate. Maybe the distance between the sections is just a little bit too sparse, And lots of little considerations as you start listening and using your ear to determine the voicings you want to go with. But in general, if you remember the harmonic series and you think about wider at the bottom and closer at the top, and you know how the basic chords work, right? Then most likely you're going to have a full and rich sound. And this is my preferred way of working because at the end of the day, I want the listener to feel a comfortable, full, balanced sound in their ear. And with acapella or really just any acoustic instrumentation, you can't really hide behind electronics or process instruments. It really comes down to knowing the foundations of how you build chords step by step. So if you're interested in doing that and you want to know more about, the theoretical aspects of the basics, then I want to give you that free guide called Music Theory Fundamentals, and it'll just walk you through the very basic stuff that you do need to know in order to create lusher arrangements and fuller chords that will give you a sense of what will sound good and what won't. So it's absolutely free if you want to check that out in the description box below. And again, a quick reminder that my course called Behind the Album Freedom is available right now. Again, it's kind of a walkthrough through the entire album making process and how I ordered the tracks, came up with the theming, talking about the lyrics and the messaging, how I made the whole album feel cohesive, and then also the orchestration, production, and all that behind it. It's some really good stuff, I think, if you're interested in how I actually put the album together and got all the songs from start to finish, and you want to take a look inside that process. So it's super affordable right now if you check the description box below. And even at the regular price, it's going to be super affordable. So in any case, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.